Hello everyone. The German poet Johann Wolfgang von Goethe said the following in one of his poems. He said, "What you have inherited from your father, you must earn over again for yourselves, or it will not be yours." Perhaps the first thing and the most important thing that we inherit from our fathers or those that came before us is our identity. As Nuer people, we get our Nuer identity from the fact that we're born from Nuer mothers, from Nuer fathers, from the fact that they belong to a community of people that have a language, that have customs, that have world views. There are people on the face of the earth that even have a form, that have a land in which they breed, in which they live, in which they sing, in which they dance, in which they think. That's your identity. So every single one of us is stamped with the image of our forefathers and our foremothers. Every single one of us. Such that wherever you are in the world, people can look and say, that is a Nuer person. One of the benefits that we get from this is the fact that you can lay claim to things that were done by people before you simply because you carry the blood of those people. So whenever you're in a university context or some college, and there are some people who are interested in the Nuer people, and then they find out that you're a Nuer person. Everybody has this sort of interest. Why? Because the great things that were done by the men and women of the past, you can take them as your own, because those were done by people that directly came from you. The beauty of your form that you carry comes not from you, but from the people that came before you. So, identity is an immensely important thing. Without identity, people don't know who they are. And if they don't know who they are, they don't know what they can be or who they can be. The only way to know who you are and what you can be is to find out who came before you. What did they accomplish? What are they capable of accomplishing? That's why an identity is one of the most coveted things on earth. And an identity is one of the first things you want to destroy whenever you want to destroy people. So for example, let's look at the American slave trade, or the practice of slavery in America. The system of slavery in America was the worst. It has no par in all of human history for its cruelty, for its intensity, and just for the sheer evil of its design. And the most powerful thing about it was that it realized that if we want to make people slaves, we've got to destroy the thing that makes them most human. And destroying the thing that makes them most human, that human beings could get at, was to destroy these people's humanity, or destroy these people's identity, I should say. Once you get rid of their identity, you can turn people into tools, simply tools that you can use to do what you want. They become no more than really complex hammers. It's what was done in American slavery. All these black slaves were brought in, many of them from different cultures, different languages. And what would happen is that whenever slaves wanted to speak their language, they were beaten. They were forbidden from speaking their languages. They were forbidden from even calling and using their own names. They could not name their children. Instead, the names that were given them were the names of the family that bought them. So, if you were bought by a family named Smith, guess what your last name would be? Your last name would be Smith. The same way in which you buy a dog from the kennel, and if you decide to call your dog Spot, if your last name is Czech, then that dog's last name would be Spot Czech. That's the lineage to which he falls. Not really lineage, but it's a sign of ownership, not a sign of lineage. That person had no connection with the Smiths, that slave. Once you could get rid of the people's identity, you get rid of any sense that they could accomplish something more. To be sure, that does arise when people start to ask about their history. There are certain things about human nature that are difficult to erase, but they can be made dormant. So that was done over 300 years ago, really. But now you see, with African Americans, people are struggling with the question of identity. And then, when they meet Africans, when they meet Nuer people like us, they see black people. Indeed, they see some of the blackest people they've ever seen. But guess what? They have their own language. They have their own customs. They have their own world views. They have their own lands. They have their own ways of thinking. Do we realize what immense hope that gives to people when they see that these black people have a history? They have something. So there are so many people among African Americans or others that realize the value of identity and would do nearly anything to get back their identity. There's so many wise people among African Americans who, in an effort to determine who they are, their genealogy, will go back to Africa. Many of them will even give themselves African names and their children African names in an effort to grasp, to get back to an identity. Something that gives them a sense of purpose, a sense of dignity, where you can walk up high. You can put your head up high and say that I belong to a people. I know who I am, and my people have a history. I am no accident. I come from people. And us, Nuer people, we come to this country, we've got identity intact. And sadly enough, so many of us are throwing it away. So many of us think it's backwards to say that you're even Nuer. Some people will say, well, I'm not Nuer, I'm an American, I'm an African American or an African Canadian. If you want to call yourself that, fine, because in some larger sense, we're African Canadians or African Americans or African Australians. But you must never forget who your lineage is. And if somebody asks you where you're from, there's nothing wrong with saying that I'm a Nuer. I'm a Nuer from South Sudan. Don't even say I'm South Sudanese, because what does that mean? South Sudan is a region. It's a region inhabited by many nations, people with different languages and customs. There is no sense in putting all these people together and asking everybody to erase their identities. Instead, if there's to be a South Sudan should be a place where all those identities are strengthened and upheld, not a place that erases these identities. So if somebody asks you, what are you? You say, I'm a Nuer, I'm South Sudan. That's what you say. Your identity is so important. And this is why we need to sit down at the feet of our older people. We need to ask them, even something as simple as our genealogies. What are my kar? Who's my father's 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 father? And a beautiful thing about the Nuer people is that everybody's genealogies eventually reach towards the same end. If you're a Nuer, one of your genealogies will reach to, they'll end at Gauran, Ranawa, Gaukot, to state that we all have a common beginning. Our state is a kinship state in which everybody's equal. A kinship state means a state formed of brothers and sisters, of people that are related. So, if we know this about the importance of identity, let's not be ashamed of who we are. Let's not be ashamed of who we are. Let's not be ashamed to stand whenever some of our people are treated badly. Let's be brave. Let's be honest. Let's show the love that we ought to be giving one another. Stand proud and tall. The Nuer people are sophisticated people. They have a strong humanitarian ethic where they care for others, where they have a philosophy that goes against oppression. They will give their lives to fight oppression. They are not afraid to stand for the truth. When you look at their system of thought, many thinkers have marveled and said, how are these people so sophisticated in thought? How is it that they have a concept of a state? How is it that they have the concept of a system of government that is essentially democratic and egalitarian long before they're industrialists? How are pastoralists able to do this? How is it that they are monotheists? And how is it that their theological philosophy is as sophisticated as the most advanced European theological philosophy? And I know this. I'm a philosopher. I studied European theology. And so your people are sophisticated thinkers. There are people that are full of music and song and dance. There are people that are pure in mind. That's who we belong to. That's what our identity is. To be fair, there are people within even the Nuer people who are not good people. But let's not identify ourselves, let's not identify our culture by those people who do wrong. Let's identify our culture, let's identify who we are by those people who do right. By those people who are loving, who are good, who are brave, who are strong, who stand for us, no matter what. So if you stand for your people and say, I'm not moving, I'm a Nuer, I'm proud of it, and I'm not apologizing for it. If somebody calls you a bigot, so be it. Being a bigot is to hate somebody else for their identity for no reason. But to stand for your identity, to insist that your people be not treated badly, is not to be a bigot. It is to be strong. It is to be a man. It is to be a woman. It is to know who you are, where you're from, where you're going. There are so many people that are lost in this world, that have no clue where they are. And they're trying here and there. They're grasping at every single identity. They want to join whatever club they can because they don't know who they are. They don't know where they belong. Yet we, as Nuer people, we know where we belong. We have a strong identity. We have a wonderful past. And we have a bright future ahead of us. So when it comes to something as simple as your name, there are a lot of young girls. Every young Nuer girl seems to be called Nyaya. Or nowadays people are changing their names and they want to give themselves Western names. But a lot of young women are doing this without knowing what the prefix Nya even means. When somebody's called Nyamal, or Nyapal, or Nyanyal, try to understand what the naming practice is about. Try to understand the philosophy. Try to understand the way that people are thinking when they come up with these naming practices. Understand what Nya means. Nya essentially means maiden. Maiden, it's a venerable term to call somebody a maiden, to a young lady. It connotes purity, it connotes value. And so when you're called Nya, whatever your name is, it not only denotes that you're a woman, but it denotes that you're a woman that's of value. You're a princess among the Nuer people. It is true that the Nuer people have no kings, they have no queens, because they all consider themselves equal, brothers and sisters. Every person respects everybody else, as they ought to. But nobody is held to be higher than anyone else. People are only given position according to what they're capable of doing. But morally, to the Nuer mind, everyone is equal. There's only difference in our positions and what we do. And those differences have to go in line with our abilities. Abilities may differ, but that we are human beings to be valued and to be considered important never changes among the Nuer people. So, these were people, our people. Our people are people that while they didn't have kings and queens, every single one of them was a king. Every single one of them was a queen. So every single one of their children was a prince or a princess. No one was poor, because poverty was defined as not having somebody you're related to. But everyone has somebody they're related to. So no one was poor. There was no such thing as a homeless person in our society, Because everybody had somebody they were related to that had obligations to make sure that they had food to eat and a place to sleep, even if their minds were not working well. Our society was a beautiful one, and it can be a beautiful one. Therefore, your identity is a beautiful one, and it can be even more beautiful. At the beginning of this quote, at the beginning of this video rather, I start with a quote by Goethe, in which he says, "What you've earned from your fathers, you must continually work, make yours." So, when it comes to this question of identity, we can't just sit passively by and say, well, I'm a Nuer, and then not realize that you have obligations to the Nuer people, to your people. When they're hurt, you have to stand for them. When wrong is done against them and said about them, you must stand for them. Everything you do will either cause our name to be great or will bring down our name. We walk and we represent our people. This is what's meant in that poem by "You must continually work to possess that which is inherited from your fathers." So, let's not be ashamed of who we are. Rather, let's stand up tall and strong and tell the world that I'm a Nuer, I'm Ramiran. Ramiran kya dwale. Ramiran kya poja milad na thwok. We're Nuer people. Let's keep that in mind. Thank you.